Hey, this is Joy. How are you doing today? I'm back today with a project featuring my favorite products from Altenew stamps. I've got their inks. I've got one of my favorite stamp sets called Majestic Blooms, and I'm doing a little bit of a different technique. I am using my die cuts from the Majestic Blooms to create a DIY stencil to create a background. In addition to that, I'm making it ombre. So ombre meaning that the darkest color is at the top and it fades into the lightest color almost to white. Also, with that same effect, I am using my bigger dies towards the top, and then they're going to kind of trickle down towards the bottom right hand side of the card, becoming smaller, like into the white space. So right now you see me kind of playing with the arrangement and using just some low tack tape to keep them in place. I do fidget with that for a few minutes, but ultimately I do go from the larger dies down to the smaller, and then I die cut that using my platinum machine, which you'll see here in just a minute that I start popping out the dies, and that just creates my stencil. I use 120 pound accent opaque cardstock to create the stencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hinge that together with just some hammer mill 80 pound smooth cardstock to blend my inks on that. So I use just blending brushes, and I'm using Altenew inks in the colors of, I can't read this, I'm sorry, Cosmic Berry, Puffy Heart, and Rose Quartz. Now for my blending, I always start with the lightest color first, and I go all the way down the page. And the reason I do that is that I'm going to use the same blending brush for the pinks, so for the medium color and the light. So I want to make sure I get a good coverage with the lighter color before I move on. And you see that I'm working that color in pretty good, because I want to get into all the nooks and crannies of each of the die cut floral, or I'm not saying, sorry, not floral, but foliage cutouts. And then from there, I do move on to the darkest color, which in this case would be the Cosmic Berry. And I go pretty heavy with this. I do it quite a few times. I go back and forth with it, just trying to get a really, really good blend, because I want my background to be vibrant. Because once I'm done with that, I'm going to come in with some stamping. So I shouldn't say I finish, but then I move on to Puffy Heart, which is the mid-tone. And that's when I bring in that other blending brush, and that's got the lighter pink on it. And that way I can fade it down into the lightest pink, which right now when you look at it on screen, it kind of looks blotchy. It looks kind of terrible, to be honest with you, but that's because I am blending on the thick cardstock that's not meant for blending, but all I'm trying to do is get that color down. See that reveal? That's so amazing. So I'm using my heat gun just to dry that thoroughly, because I'm going to do some heat embossing with my stamping. So I pull out my embossing tool from Rabbit Hole Designs, and I treat the pages, and then I take the outline stamps from the Majestic Bloom stamp set, and I put those in place using my Misty. I used my Misty just so that I could do all my stamping at one time. If you like, you can use a stamping block and do them individually. The stamping would be quite easy. It's just up to you what you want to do, but I ink that up with an embossing ink once I get that stamped down. And then I add some gold embossing powder, which I keep in a Tupperware type container. I like that because then I can kind of pour my embossing powder over it and it'll go right back in. You can use a paper as a funnel. You can use coffee liners, whatever you prefer, but I like my method. And then again, to each our own. Now I'm heating up my images, and I could watch, seriously, embossing melt all day long. Now you'll see that this card panel looks kind of blank and doesn't have a lot to offer. So that's when I come back in and I repeat my inking. I do the exact same process as I did before. I start with the rose quartz all the way down. I leave just a hair of white space at the bottom, and I just really try to get really good coverage on there. And it takes a little bit to achieve that. And then I move into the Cosmic Berry, and I am ink blending right on top of my embossing. That is called an emboss resist, and you'll see that in just a minute, that the ink, once it settles, you can wipe that right off the top of the embossing, and that beautiful gold embossing just reappears. And then from there I move back into the Puffy Heart to get some more of a blend, and back into the rose quartz. I do go back and fiddle with the darkest color at the top because it looked kind of smeary to me once I used my baby wipe. I think my wipe was just a little too wet, but I go in with a heating tool by Ranger. It's the Tim Holtz heat gun, and that I like better because it doesn't get as hot, so my embossing doesn't melt. Again, you can emboss with it, but it takes a little longer for that gun to get hot enough, so that's why I use that. Then I move into into stamping a sentiment, and I believe that was from the Sakatoa stamp set, and I'm using a grid, acetate grid from Simon Says Stamp, just to get that straight. Inked that up with embossing ink, and then I am using the same embossing, gold embossing powder to emboss that. I just think that it's a gorgeous color. I'm keeping this pretty simple. It was just to share a new and different technique with you. We could look into how to take their card up a couple notches at another time. If you're interested in that, just leave me a comment in the box below. I'd love to know what you think. And then I am taking my Unicorn Sparks by Prima, and I'm just splattering some gold on there for more interest. That seems to be my thing lately. I can't get enough splatter. And then you're going to see that I bring in some shimmer gold cardstock to mat my focal layer. And then I adhere that to a eggplant colored card base. It's A2 sized. And then since I'm using that darker cardstock, I went ahead and lined it with a white layer. And then I took that beautiful bloom from Majestic Blooms and stamped that in the rose quartz ink just to give it more interest on the inside. And that really finishes up my card. So I would love your comments. I would appreciate a like, and even consider subscribing if you don't mind. I am a newer channel trying to build up my YouTube presence, and anything helps at this point as far as building the channel. So my very last thing is I take some sequins from, some gems from HAI Supply, and I am applying those in trios, just in little triangles around some of the foliage, and I put that down with my Barely Art glue because it dries clear. And to me that's very important, because if you have any type of spilling, it doesn't show. So I like that. And I also try to use a mixture of the bigger gems with the medium and small, just because I think it just adds a nice touch and some visual interest and texture. Let me know what you think of the card. Let me know if you would like to see this take it up to the next notch, if you would like to see multiple stamp layering. We can do all kinds of things with this stamp set. It is amazing. I believe it's an 8.5 by 11 size stamp, so our possibilities are endless. So let me know. Again, if you would, I would appreciate a subscribe. Have a great day, and until next time, keep crafting. Bye-bye.